Lancia Stratos, born to conquer mountains, destined to become myth. There are cars that define an era, and then there is the Lancia Stratos. A machine so radical, so unapologetically purpose-built, that it shattered every convention of what a road car and a rally car could be. Born in the early 1970s from a collision of Italian design genius and motorsport ambition, the Stratos remains one of the most extraordinary automobiles ever conceived. At first glance, the Stratos does not so much sit on the road as crouch upon it. Its impossibly low, wedge-shaped body barely rises above your waist, yet it projects an aggression that is almost predatory. The wraparound windshield, the sharp creases along its flanks, the dramatic rear buttresses cradling that Ferrari-sourced engine, every line serves a purpose, and that purpose is speed. What makes the Stratos truly exceptional is its origin story. This was not a road car adapted for competition, nor a racing prototype softened for the street. It was designed from the very first sketch as a rally weapon, arguably the first car in history created specifically to dominate World Championship rallying. The road-going Stradale version was merely a necessary concession, the minimum number of units Lancia needed to build to satisfy homologation regulations. Standing before a Stratos today, decades after its competition career ended, its visual impact has not diminished by a single degree. The car still looks as if it has arrived from a future that the rest of the automotive world has yet to reach. Its proportions defy logic. A wheelbase of just 2,180 millimeters, shorter than many modern hatchbacks, combined with that dramatic wedge profile, creates a silhouette unlike anything else on four wheels. The Lancia Stratos matters because it represents the purest possible expression of form following function in automotive design. It proved that a car could be simultaneously beautiful and brutally effective, a work of art that also happened to be the most dominant rally machine of its generation. In an industry that too often settles for compromise, the Stratos refused to compromise on anything. The story of the Lancia Stratos begins not in a corporate boardroom, but in the restless imagination of Bertone and his chief designer, the legendary Marcello Gandini. In 1970, Bertone unveiled the Stratos Zero at the Turin Motor Show, a concept car so extreme that it stood just 840 millimeters tall, barely reaching the door handles of a conventional sedan. Powered by a humble Lancia Fulvia V4 engine mounted amidships, the Zero was a pure design exercise, a rolling sculpture meant to provoke. And provoke it did. Cesare Fiorio, the brilliant and ambitious head of Lancia's racing department, saw something beyond the spectacle. He had been searching for a successor to the aging Fulvia HF, which, despite its elegance, was reaching the limits of its competitive potential. Fiorio envisioned a purpose-built rally car, and the Stratos concept provided the spark. He approached Bertone with a proposition that would change motorsport history. The critical breakthrough came through corporate politics that, for once, worked in a car's favor. Fiat had acquired both Lancia and Ferrari, and Fiorio lobbied successfully to use Ferrari's glorious Dino V6 engine, the 2,418 cubic centimeter unit from the outgoing Dino 246 GT. This was no ordinary power plant. Designed originally under Vittorio Gianno's guidance and refined by Ferrari's engineers, it brought genuine racing pedigree to the project. Development was entrusted to Mike Parks, the former Ferrari Formula One driver-turned-engineer, who brought both technical brilliance and practical racing experience. Gandini reworked his radical design into something that could actually be produced and raced, though it remained breathtakingly unconventional. The first prototype appeared at the 1971 Turin Motor Show, and testing began in earnest through 1972 and into 1973. The path to production was anything but smooth. Internal politics at Fiat, engineering challenges with the compact packaging, and the sheer ambition of the project created constant obstacles. But Fiorio's relentless drive and Bertone's commitment carried the Stratos from concept to reality. By 1973, the first production Stratos HF Stradales were rolling out of the factory, and the rally world was about to be turned upside down. Chapter 3: Gandini's Geometric Fury. Marcello Gandini was already responsible for the Lamborghini Miura and the Countach when he penned the Lancia Stratos, and yet this smaller, less expensive machine may represent his most cohesive design achievement. Where the Countach dealt in theatrical excess, the Stratos achieved something far more difficult. It made every dramatic gesture serve a functional purpose. The design philosophy was dictated by a single imperative: create the most effective rally car possible. This meant compact dimensions, excellent visibility for driver and co-driver, and a body that could absorb the punishment of forest stages and mountain passes. Gandini responded with a shape built around triangles and sharp intersecting planes. The massive wraparound windshield, which curves seamlessly into the side windows, provides panoramic visibility that is almost disorienting from behind the wheel. Rally drivers could see obstacles approaching from nearly any angle, a crucial advantage on narrow stages. The rear of the car is dominated by those iconic flying buttresses, structural ribs that frame the engine cover and channel air to the mid-mounted V6. They also serve a deeply practical purpose, providing structural rigidity to the lightweight fiberglass body while allowing the entire rear clamshell to hinge open for rapid engine access between rally stages. A mechanic could reach every major component of the powertrain in seconds, an engineering consideration that won as many rallies as the engine itself. The body construction was deliberately modular. Fiberglass panels were bolted to a steel central tub, meaning damaged sections could be replaced quickly in service. This was rally thinking applied to bodywork design, and it was years ahead of its time. The front and rear sections could be removed entirely, transforming the Stratos into a nearly naked mechanical skeleton for major repairs. The color palette of production, Stradales, tended toward bold, unapologetic hues. Rosso Arancio, Verde Metallizzato, Azzurro Chiaro. These were colors that matched the car's personality, loud, confident, and utterly Italian. The Stratos was never meant to blend in, and Gandini ensured it never could. Every surface, every angle, every proportion exists because the design demanded it, not because convention expected it. At the mechanical core of the Lancia Stratos sits one of the most charismatic engines ever installed in a production car, Ferrari's Tipo 8029 V6. Displacing 2,418 cubic centimeters from a 65-degree bank angle, this all-aluminum unit features dual overhead camshafts per bank, driven by toothed belts, and 3 twin-choke Weber 40 DCNF carburetors. In road-going Stradale specification, it produces 100 horsepower at 7,000 rpm and 166 pound-feet of torque at 5,500 rpm. These figures may sound modest by modern standards, but paired with a car weighing just 980 kilograms, the result is devastating. The engine is mounted transversely behind the cockpit, a layout that concentrates mass within the wheelbase and contributes to the Stratos' legendary agility. Power reaches the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual gearbox, and the entire drivetrain package is remarkably compact, fitting within a wheelbase that measures just 2,180 millimeters. For context, that is shorter than a modern Fiat 500. The chassis is a semi-monocoque steel structure, with the engine and gearbox serving as stressed members that contribute to overall rigidity. Front suspension uses McPherson's struts, while the rear employs a Chapman strut arrangement, both tuned for the violent impacts and unpredictable surfaces of rally competition. Ventilated disc brakes serve all four corners, with the Stratos being one of the earliest production cars to feature four-wheel disc brakes as standard. In rally specification, the numbers escalated dramatically. Group 4 cars extracted up to 280 horsepower from the same basic engine through higher compression ratios, aggressive camshaft profiles, and meticulous attention to airflow. The most extreme incarnations, prepared for Group 5 silhouette racing, employed a KKK turbocharger that pushed output beyond 560 horsepower, transforming an already ferocious machine into something genuinely terrifying. Overall dimensions tell the story of a car designed without an ounce of excess. Length is 3,710 mm, width 1,750 mm, and height a mere 1,114 mm. The fuel tank holds 70 litres, and the turning circle is remarkably tight thanks to that diminutive wheelbase. Every specification reflects a car engineered with a single-minded clarity that remains astonishing. Chapter 5. Savage grace on any surface. Driving a Lancia Stratos is an experience that simultaneously terrifies and intoxicates. The road-going Stradale accelerates from rest to 100 km per hour in approximately 6.8 seconds, a figure that was electrifying in the mid-1970s and remains genuinely quick today. Top speed is listed at 232 km per hour, though few owners ever explored the upper reaches of that claim on public roads. But raw numbers tell only a fraction of the Stratos story. The car's true genius lies in its handling, or more precisely, in the way it translates driver inputs into motion with an immediacy that borders on the telepathic. That absurdly short wheelbase, combined with the mid-engine weight distribution, creates a machine that pivots around its center of gravity with an eagerness that can catch the unwary off guard. Turn-in is instantaneous. The front end bites with absolute conviction, and the rear follows with a fluid progressiveness that rewards bravery and punishes hesitation. On loose surfaces, where the Stratos was born to perform, the experience becomes almost transcendent. Rally drivers like Sandro Munari and Björn Valdegård discovered that the Stratos could be steered as much with the throttle as with the wheel. The short wheelbase and responsive engine made the car a natural at controlled oversteer, dancing through gravel corners in spectacular four-wheel drifts that became the defining image of 1970s rallying. The cabin, however, makes no concessions to comfort. The driving position is reclined and low, with the steering wheel angled almost horizontally. Pedals are offset. Visibility to the rear is essentially non-existent, and the Ferrari V6 fills the cockpit with a mechanical symphony that ranges from a cultured hum at idle to a savage wail approaching the 8,000 RPM redline. Engine heat permeates the cabin, particularly in traffic, and the ventilation system is more conceptual than functional. None of this matters. The Stratos rewards commitment and punishes complacency, and in doing so it provides a driving experience of unmatched intensity. It demands total engagement from the moment you drop into that low-slung seat. It is not a car for passive transportation. It is a car for those who believe driving should be an act of pure, undiluted participation. The production history of the Lancia Stratos is as dramatic and contested as the car itself. Homologation into Group 4 for international rallying required a minimum of 400 road-going examples to be manufactured, and whether Lancia actually achieved that number has been debated among historians for decades. The official figure most commonly cited is 492 units produced between 1973 and 1978, though some researchers argue the true number is closer to 492 completed chassis with varying degrees of completion. Production took place not at a conventional Lancia factory, but at Bertone's facility in Grugliasco, near Turin. This was an unusual arrangement that reflected the Stratos' unique position as a car that existed primarily to go rallying, with road car production treated as a regulatory obligation rather than a commercial priority. Each car was essentially hand-assembled, with the fiberglass bodywork fitted to the steel tub and the Ferrari V6 installed with a level of craftsmanship that varied considerably from one example to the next. The homologation process itself was contentious. When Lancia presented the Stratos to the FIA for approval in 1974, inspectors were skeptical that 400 units had actually been completed. Legend holds that Lancia shuttled partially assembled cars between different locations to inflate the apparent count during the inspection. Whether this tale is apocryphal or accurate, homologation was ultimately granted in October 1974 and the Stratos was cleared to compete. Of the approximately 492 units built, a significant number were immediately converted to rally specification by the factory or by privateers. Many more were crushed, destroyed, or cannibalized for parts over the subsequent decades. Today, the surviving population of genuine Stratos Stradales is estimated at fewer than 400, with perhaps 250 to 300 in documented roadworthy condition. This scarcity has made the Stratos one of the most coveted collector cars in existence. Each surviving example carries a provenance that is studied and argued over with the intensity normally reserved for Renaissance paintings. The car was never meant to be common, and time has ensured it has become genuinely rare. For a machine that was built only because regulations demanded it, the Stratos has achieved an exclusivity that most manufacturers can only dream of engineering deliberately. Chapter 7. Icon Beyond the Asphalt. The Lancia Stratos transcended the world of motorsport to become one of the most recognizable automotive silhouettes on the planet. Its wedge-shaped profile has appeared on bedroom posters alongside the Countach and the Ferrari 512BB, occupying a special place in the imagination of anyone who grew up during the 1970s and 1980s. But the Stratos' cultural influence extends far beyond adolescent decoration. In the world of automotive design, the Stratos has served as a touchstone for decades. Its influence is visible in everything from the Lancia 037, its spiritual successor, to modern rally-inspired concepts. Designers consistently cite Gandini's work on the Stratos as a masterclass in how to create a car that communicates its purpose through pure form. The wedge motif that the Stratos helped popularize became the dominant design language of the 1970s, influencing everything from the Lotus Esprit to the BMW M1. The car has been featured in countless video games, from early arcade rally titles to modern simulators like Gran Turismo and Assetto Corsa, where it consistently ranks among the most popular vehicles. Each digital recreation introduces a new generation to the Stratos' unique character, ensuring its legend continues to grow even as the surviving original cars become ever more precious and rarely driven. In 2010, the automotive world was electrified when a privately commissioned modern interpretation of the Stratos appeared, built on a shortened Ferrari F430 chassis by Pininfarina. Designed by Michael Stoschek, the new Stratos was intended to spark a limited production run, but Ferrari reportedly blocked the project, refusing to supply the necessary chassis. The episode demonstrated both the enduring power of the Stratos name and the passions it continues to ignite. The Stratos has also become a symbol of a particular era in Italian automotive culture, a time when manufacturers like Lancia, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari were willing to take extraordinary creative risks. It represents the intersection of art, engineering and competitive ambition in a way that few objects of any kind can match. The car has been exhibited in the Museum of Modern Art in New York and featured in design retrospectives worldwide. It is not merely a car that participated in culture, it is a car that shaped it. The Lancia Stratos did not merely compete in the World Rally Championship. It annihilated the opposition with a thoroughness that has never been repeated. Between 1974 and 1976, the Stratos claimed 3 consecutive World Rally Championship manufacturers' titles, a streak of dominance that established it as the most successful rally car of its era and one of the greatest in the history of the sport. The Stratos made its competitive debut before homologation was even completed, running in selected events during 1972 and 1973. Even in these early appearances, it showed flashes of devastating speed. But it was in 1974, once homologation was secured and the car was fully developed, that the Stratos began its reign. That year, it took the manufacturer's championship with victories on surfaces ranging from the ice-covered mountain passes of Monte Carlo to the dusty gravel stages of the San Remo Rally. The 1975 season was even more dominant. Sandro Munari, the aristocratic Roman who became the Stratos' most celebrated pilot, won the Monte Carlo Rally in commanding fashion, threading the tiny Lancia through snowbound alpine stages with a precision that left rivals demoralized. The car won again at the Tour de Corse. The Safari Rally saw a strong showing despite the event's brutal attrition, and the championship was retained with rounds to spare. In 1976, the Stratos completed its hat trick. Munari again won Monte Carlo, his partnership with the car now legendary. Björn Valdegård contributed crucial victories, and the championship was secured for the 3rd consecutive time. The Stratos also won the 1977 Monte Carlo Rally with Munari, and, remarkably, Bernard Darnich won the event again in 1979, years after official factory support had ended. The car's competition career was cut short not by a superior rival, but by corporate politics. Fiat, which controlled both Lancia and the championship-winning Stratos program, decided to promote the Fiat 31 Abarth for the 1977 season, redirecting factory resources away from the Stratos. It was a decision that outraged fans and drivers alike. Privateers continued to campaign the Stratos for years afterward, and the car kept winning long after Fiat had abandoned it. The corporate acts that ended its factory career may be the greatest injustice in rally history. Chapter 9. The Million-Dollar Wedge. The Lancia Stratos has evolved from a homologation special into one of the most valuable and fiercely contested collector cars in the global market. Values have climbed steadily for 3 decades, with the steepest appreciation occurring in the period from 2010 onward as a new generation of collectors discovered the car's unique combination of design brilliance, racing provenance, and extreme rarity. Road-going Stratos Stradale, in excellent documented condition, now routinely command prices between €500,000 and €900,000 at international auction houses. Exceptional examples with low mileage, original paint, and comprehensive service histories have crossed the €1 million threshold, a figure that would have seemed inconceivable when these cars could be bought for 5-figure sums in the early 1990s. The market rewards originality above all else, with matching numbers, engines, period-correct color combinations, and intact factory specifications commanding significant premiums. X-Works rally cars occupy an entirely different stratosphere. Stratos chassis with documented factory competition history, particularly those driven by Munari or Waldegard in championship-winning events, have been known to trade privately for sums well exceeding €2 million. These transactions often occur outside the public auction system, between collectors who understand that cars with this level of provenance essentially never become available twice. The market for the Stratos is further complicated by the significant number of replicas and heavily restored examples in circulation. The car's fiberglass bodywork and relatively simple construction have made it a popular subject for replica builders, and distinguishing a genuine Stratos from a well-executed copy requires specialist knowledge. Marques experts like the Registro Lancia Stratos in Italy maintain databases of known chassis numbers and production records that are essential for authentication. Despite the lofty prices, demand consistently outstrips supply. The Stratos appeals to a uniquely broad collector demographic, attracting racing enthusiasts, design aficionados, Italian car specialists, and general blue-chip collectors alike. It is one of very few cars that commands respect and desire across every segment of the collecting world. Unlike many collectible supercars, the Stratos is also regularly driven at historic rally events and track days, ensuring that these cars continue to fulfill the purpose for which they were created. The Lancia Stratos established a template that the automotive world has spent 5 decades attempting to replicate without ever quite succeeding. It was the first car designed from a blank sheet of paper specifically to win a world championship, and in doing so it proved that purpose-built machinery could triumph over adapted road cars. Every dedicated rally car that followed, from the Audi Quattro to the Peugeot 205 T16 to the modern world rally cars, owes a philosophical debt to the Stratos and to Cesare Fiorio's original vision. The car's influence on Lancia itself was profound. The 037 rally, which succeeded the Stratos in the early 1980s, was an explicit attempt to recapture the same magic with updated technology. Like the Stratos, it was mid-engined rear-wheel drive and built in limited numbers for homologation purposes. The 037 won the 1983 World Rally Championship, the last rear-wheel drive car ever to do so, and its designers acknowledged the Stratos as their direct inspiration. Even the legendary Delta Integral, which dominated rallying in the late 1980s and early 1990s, carried the competitive DNA that the Stratos had first implanted in Lancia's corporate culture. Beyond motorsport, the Stratos demonstrated that a small manufacturer could punch enormously above its weight through clarity of purpose and creative courage. Lancia was never a large company, and the resources devoted to the Stratos program were modest compared to what major manufacturers would spend on competition programs in later decades. But by focusing those limited resources on a single, brilliantly conceived machine, Lancia achieved results that money alone could never guarantee. Today, the Stratos stands as a monument to an era of automotive creativity that may never return. Modern regulations, corporate risk aversion, and the homogenizing influence of computer-aided design have made it virtually impossible for a car this singular to reach production. The Stratos was born from the unique confluence of Italian design genius, Ferrari engineering, and the sheer force of will of individuals like Fiorio, Gandini, and Parks. It remains proof that when extraordinary people are given the freedom to pursue an extraordinary vision, the result can transcend the boundaries of its medium entirely. The Lancia Stratos is not merely an important car, it is one of the great objects of the 20th century.